Hello and good afternoon, everybody, followers of the North Coast Redwoods District. My name is Ryan, and I'm an interpreter with California State Parks, and I'm joined by Maiya. And we're really happy to be joining you today. We're going to be talking a little bit about Yurok culture, and hopefully you'll have some questions for us. And I'll be trying to ask some questions as well. And we are trying to practice social distancing here because this is the age of social distancing. It's really important that everyone is following the guidelines and making sure that they are doing their part to stay inside when they can, and to just make sure to be safe and consider other people's safety as well. So I really appreciate that so many people are doing that. We definitely miss you at our parks, and we cannot wait for you all to be able to come back. We are actually standing here at Fort Humboldt State Historic Park, and Fort Humboldt is an area here in southern Eureka, and it is also the hub of our North Coast Redwoods District. But we are actually going to be talking about an area a little bit farther north, which is a place that we're not able to get to today because of our connectivity, but that's Patrick's Point State Park, the home of Sumeg Village. And I'm just going to bring up a map here real quick. We are talking to you from way up here in the northern part near Eureka. We are in Eureka. Sumeg Village is located a little bit farther north. And the reason that we are here today with Maiya is because she has been generous enough to bring just a few things to show us from Yurok culture. So I'm just going to go ahead and let Maiya introduce herself. Thank you for joining us, Maiya. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you work for?
Hi, I'm Ranger Maiya, and I'm an interpreter for California State Parks, and I work at Patrick's Point State Park at Sumeg Village. And so I do interpretation of the village and tell people about Yurok.
Awesome. Hi, Mark. Thanks for joining us today, and hello back. So I noticed that you came with something. Would you mind telling us a little bit of what you brought today?
So I came with 4 different caps, basket caps that Yurok people weave, and different tribes weave too. And so these are all caps that are in my family. And so these were either bought or made by my family. And so this one was made by my grandmother, and her name is Fern Bates. She made this cap for my sister, and it's not that old, it's maybe 2 years old, and it has, these all have different designs.
Can you tell us what are the caps made out of?
They're made out of different roots and willow sticks, and so there's different roots that people use, spruce roots, and I don't remember the other root. And so these ones, you can see sometimes a difference between the caps. This one is more fine and a lot smaller, and then this one is a lot bigger. So the roots are a lot bigger. And so that's just, I think, personal preference of the basket maker. So this one also is really fine.
All right. I noticed that the one on the top has some yellow. Could you tell me where that yellow comes from?
This is porcupine quill, dyed with moss. And so this moss, I'm blanking the name, but is usually in high elevation. And it turns the porcupine needles yellow. And porcupine needles are also used in halos for world renewal ceremonies.
Excellent.
And so they get different colors from different things. There's different techniques to that. So these ones all have different kind of colors. One's darker than the other. Some are lighter.
We're gonna move a little bit. We're gonna see if we can get a little bit away from the wind. We are getting a lot of wind right now, and that is pretty common this time of year in the springtime here, right here near the coast. we get this kind of northwesterly wind, and that usually brings out, it's kind of what brings in our fog eventually. So this is kind of the change of our season right now. So thank you for bearing with us. It's a little bit hard to hear, but we're going to keep trying to engage with everyone here. It's a little bit chilly out here too. Probably feels like it could be maybe in the low 50s right now. It's pretty cold. So let's see. Someone at least, okay, it looks like the hearing's a little bit better. So we'll just try to repeat what we said. So these baskets, or I'm sorry, these hats that you brought here. You said that these are hats that your family has made.
Or these are from my family, and some of these are not made by my family. So we believe this one was found in a pawn shop. Sometimes these baskets or basket caps get put in pawn shops because people take them or steal them from people's homes and they sell them because they're worth a lot. And so this one was found in a pawn shop by my mom and grandma, and they believe it's my great-grandmother's, that she made this one. And these ones were bought at the same time by my family because they liked them. And then this one, I said previously, was made by my grandmother, Fern Bates. Her maiden name is Charles.
So before we started, I had asked you a question about like how these hats could fit on your head, and maybe like if you needed different sizes of hats because of different hairstyles. So you'd mentioned in a program that you'd given in the home learning program that traditionally Yurok women did not cut their hair ever. So would that kind of change based on that, do you think that it's more recent that you would have hats of different sizes for a person, and then maybe a long time ago that people would have kind of the same size hat all the time? Or were there different hat sizes for the same people?
People would cut their hair, but for certain reasons, and everybody's head's different. People could have big heads, people could have small heads, children have small heads. So typically, I believe younger children would have smaller caps, and then as they grew bigger, they would have the same size head like I do now, since I've been dancing for 7 years, and so I have been able to wear the same size cap, and so my head hasn't grown very much. My mom has the same size head as me, so I think my head's not going to grow anymore. And so but typically I feel like the hats range from very different sizes, and I think it just depends on the person. So the hats would be typically maybe the same size, maybe a little different.
We have a question about the pattern. What sort of is there a family kind of link for each pattern? Are the patterns are there different patterns for different people or different families?
There are different patterns sometimes for different families, but there's also different patterns for different tribes. So sometimes you can tell based on the cap what tribe it's from. And so there's a lot of basket weavers around here, and so they all use different designs for different hats.
So it sounds like that might have answered the question for Martin there about the patterns. Excellent. So these are hats that we're looking at. There are other things that look a lot like these hats. For example, there are bowls and baskets. Is that correct? That look pretty similar in style.
Yeah, there's even different types of caps. There's working caps and there's dance caps. So working caps are caps that are worn while you're working in the kitchen, while you're working around your house, or maybe working around different areas. And that's what women would wear while they're working. And so these are dance caps. So these are only worn during ceremony. And then there are different things that look like these hats. but they're bowls or they're trinket baskets or different types of baskets for different things. And there's tons of different types of baskets.
That's excellent. So let's see if, so looks like hopefully that answered the question for you, Anne, about hats for different reasons. We have, let's see if we have any other questions here. How long did it take? How much time was, do you think, spent making hats in a given day? I mean, I guess really it's kind of, we would first want to talk about, I mean, it's really important to remember that Yurok people, as well as all Indigenous people, are still here in this region and still practicing traditions. But I would imagine that the amount of time spent making caps is a little less than it used to be. But do you know how long it was traditionally, much time spent just making baskets and hats and bowls and things like that?
I think, my personal opinion, I started weaving baskets this year. I learned from my grandmother, and my mother knows how, and my younger sister knows how, so I learned this year. And I made a basket the size of my thumb. It took me 2 days. And that was just me being there, sitting there for 2 days straight. So I would imagine a basket like this, if somebody wanted it perfect and they undid parts of it just to restart it again, you're looking at probably a few months, depending on the weaver. Because some weavers are just go with it. Some will go back and be perfectionists. Most basket weavers aren't perfectionists, like my grandmother.
Was there a time when baskets and caps and other things like that were not being made?
Not that I know of. I know that my grandma has weaved for her pretty much her whole life. She learned from her mother, my great grandmother, Ada Charles, and my mom and my grandma have always known how to weave baskets. My mom learned at a kind of young age how to weave baskets, and she would sit during the summers, all summer, with my great grandmother and weave baskets.
Awesome. We have a question from Laura that is, what ceremonies would have required caps or hats?
Rush dances, world renewal ceremonies. Sometimes people would wear them to the ceremonies. Usually girls would be wearing halos made out of porcupine quill, like this right here. And they would look yellow. They'd be dyed yellow with moss. And so they'd just be like a maybe 3-strand or a 5-strand porcupine necklace, and it would just be this thick around, and it would go directly around your head like a halo, and they'd be wearing that. But usually people that are observing and being there and putting that energy, they're wearing caps sometimes.
Excellent. So looks like that maybe answers the question about what kind of ceremonies. Could you describe a little bit? You mentioned the world renewal ceremony, and can you just say what the purpose of that is for?
So every 2 years there is 2 different world renewal ceremonies in this area. There's Chapek and Pekwan. There's jump dances, they call in English, and so they're ceremonies to put things back in place in the world, like not just your world but the whole world. And so they're healing the world. They're putting that energy back into the world. They're lifting their baskets, and they're lifting all the bad out of the world and putting it away. And so it's a place where we're all going and we're praying and taking good energy to put back into place what shifted in those 2 years.
When is the next world renewal ceremony?
There is one this year. There's Chapek and Pekwan, and they're this summer, or late summer, early.
Sounds like really good timing, actually. We have a question from Marnin. Would women wear caps all the time or only for certain occasions?
I think it depended. I'm not that
Now we have a question. Is that ceremony, the world renewal ceremony, performed at the same time by other tribes? Are there other tribes that do that ceremony?
There's different tribes that do different ceremonies that are world renewal, and so Yurok people, they have one on the lagoon that moves all the way up the mountain, and there's people hiking for 3 days, and I participated in that. And then there's also one that my family does in inland, which is called Pakwan, and that's a village site that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Mountain. And so there's a road that leads to it, but there's not a lot of people go out there. And so that's Yurok people, and then there's Humboldt people that do a white deerskin dance, and that's their world renewal ceremony.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Maiya, I want to thank you so much for sharing and bringing these caps to show us. And it looks like people really have enjoyed seeing them and really appreciate the incredible aesthetic beauty of them. And thank you everybody for joining us. And just as a reminder, we're talking to you here at Fort Humboldt State Historic Park. We're talking about land that is the ancestral land of the Yurok tribe farther north. But this land here that we're on is ancestral land of the Wiyot tribe. And if you want to learn more about that, then you can join interpreter Kyle as he talks about the history of Fort Humboldt. And I believe he's on tomorrow. He's on Saturday at 3 p.m. So if you want to join at 3 p.m. on Saturday to learn about Fort Humboldt history, then you'll get a little more of a taste of this particular location that we're on. But thank you so much for joining everybody. It was really great to be able to talk with you, and I hope that you're all staying safe and making sure that you're keeping other people safe as well. And we hope to be able to talk with you soon, and we hope that this has just brightened your day a little bit and gotten the parks into your home. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye!